They sent me to the slums for 6 years. Now they regret it. My adopted sister, trying to play the poor little waif, threw herself in front of my car, screaming I'd hit her. Ashley, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have been so greedy for mom and dad's attention. I'm just a charity case, after all. To teach me a lesson, my brother and fiancé teamed up to break my leg and told me to crawl home. My parents, not even listening to my side, coldly dumped me in a war-torn slum overseas. You're a cancer on this family. We should have had you aborted. 6 years of hell, and I finally became numb. Now they're all acting like lunatics, begging me not to leave. The airport was huge. I clutched my ratty clothes tighter, trying to disappear into a corner, away from all the stares. Ashley, you tried ducking me. I looked up, saw a car speeding right at me. Behind the wheel, my brother Jake wore this nasty, challenging grin. 6 years in that slum. I honestly felt nothing, or maybe it was relief. I closed my eyes. The screech of tires stopped just inches from my toes. Jake's voice was pure irritation. How many Thanksgivings have gone by? You couldn't even bother to send a postcard home. Let us know you're alive. The whole family's been worried sick for years. If it wasn't for Amy pushing me to come get you, I wouldn't have wasted my time. Remember to thank her, okay? Translation. Amy was being a saint, and I was an ungrateful bitch. I nodded, not wasting any words on memories. That place was a war zone, constant shelling, everyone scrambling to survive. Just sitting down for a conversation was a luxury, and saying the wrong thing, that meant brutal exploitation, beatings. I didn't have an inch of skin that wasn't scarred. Jake frowned like he wasn't happy with my silence. His voice got louder. Cat, got your tongue? Say something. 6 years, and you still haven't learned to be polite? Still think you're some princess? What kind of stunt are you trying to pull? How could I even dare? Sorry, Mr. Jake. I won't do it again. Oh, the words scratched my dry, hurting throat. Apologizing was automatic now. He just stared, shocked. Once we'd been the closest brother and sister. Now we were strangers. But he'd forgotten. 6 years ago, he'd said his only sister was Amy. I didn't deserve the title. Now a refugee scraping by under the thumb of armed thugs. Yeah, I definitely didn't qualify. You. Why are you hassling her? Can she even understand you? Get in the car. Amy's waiting at home. Before he could finish, a familiar voice came from the backseat. I opened the door and saw my childhood sweetheart. Ryan didn't even look up. He was scrolling through photos on his phone, picking and choosing. Sometimes he even cracked a smile, something he never showed me, until he glanced up, seeing me, and looked a little stunned. Your leg. I touched the scar that ran down my shin, tugging my dirty jeans lower. The second year in the slum, a bunch of mercenaries went on a killing spree. If they hadn't decided to keep me around for entertainment, it would have been more than just a scar. You were so good at bullying people at home. What's with the act now? You just gonna try and steal Amy's thunder again? My foot froze before getting into the car. No, I won't. He arched an eyebrow, looking satisfied. Good. She'll be relieved to hear that. I didn't know what to do, whether to get in or not. Then Jake honked the horn, hurrying me on, and I climbed in tense. The next second, I heard Ryan's disgusted voice. Ugh, that's disgusting. My worn-down, gray-black sneakers looked completely out of place on the pristine car mats. Old mud, blood, dirty water. I hadn't changed them in forever. I remembered how they used to be my favorite white sneakers. I started shaking, instinctively kneeling down and scrubbing at the mat with the edge of my sleeve, the only clean bit of cloth I had. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I'll clean it. I'll clean it. The words tumbled out without me even thinking. I'll be quick, it'll be clean, you'll see. The mercenaries had used the same tone, cursing me for being dirty while their actions got more and more violent. The repeated wounds on my body became their source of amusement. It was like the louder I screamed, the less dignity I had, and the happier they were. Why? I didn't know. I just knew that to please them, I had to do what they wanted. What are you doing? Do you have any class? Ryan was shocked and angry. Jake saw what I was doing in the rearview mirror and just stared. But all they did was complain. Neither of them helped me. Or maybe they just thought I was too dirty, that they'd get their hands contaminated. Then suddenly Jake spoke up. Get in the car. Don't bother cleaning it. I looked up confused. He didn't mind me being dirty. Jake loved his car. Besides Amy, no one else could mess it up. If he'd been this generous to me before, I would have been happy for weeks. But now, hearing him tell me to get in the car just confused me. Of course, Ryan answered for Jake. We'll have the car detailed tomorrow. Disinfected a few times. When we got out of the car, the old butler noticed I was limping. He teared up but didn't say anything. He went to help me. I flinched away without even thinking. Thanks. My parents rushed over the second they saw me, but they stopped themselves before they hugged me. I saw a flash of pain in their eyes. Honey, you suffered so much overseas. Your mother wasn't there for you. You must not have been eating well, right? Quick, your dad made dumplings today, just waiting for you to get home. Before she could finish, Jake rolled his eyes and waved me off. Suffered? It's all an act. She was giving everyone grief on the way, acting like a princess who didn't want to get in the car. Mom, why did you slap me? Mom just glared at him, disappointed. I watched it all calmly, not feeling any kind of family connection. Then she looked back at me, her eyes filled with pity. I couldn't tell if it was real or not. After all, these were the people who'd said they wanted to abort me. Could they really have changed that much? Don't say that stuff now that Ashley's home. No matter what, she's your sister, and she's part of this family. Jake just muttered under his breath. We went inside, and all that was left on the table was a mess of leftovers. Dad said awkwardly, well, Amy's got a sensitive stomach. I didn't want her to get hungry, so she ate first. Like he meant it or not, Jake let out a loud burp. I understood. Family dinner didn't include me. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you don't have to worry about me. I'm not hungry. Please don't trouble yourselves. I was scared I couldn't repay them. Besides, skipping a meal or two had been normal for 6 years. One time I went 3 days without food, just surviving on snow. I was so hungry I started chewing on my own flesh. My stomach was probably ulcerated by now. What? What did you call us? Mom and Dad were stunned, their eyes red. They couldn't believe their own daughter was calling them that. Or maybe they were just upset that I didn't instantly start hugging them. Complaining? Begging for comfort. Was that it? Seeing I wasn't going to sit down, Dad stopped Mom and sighed heavily. Never mind, just take her upstairs and let her wash up. Upstairs, after changing, I put on a plain, long dress that covered everything. I ran right into Amy. She screamed, recoiling. A bunch of people rushed up from downstairs. Jake shoved me from behind. What are you trying to do to Amy? Didn't you get enough in the slums? You can't get rid of your bad habits. And now you're going after her again. The shove ripped open the wounds on my back, the pain making me see stars for a second. Amy quickly calmed Jake down, sobbing quietly. It's okay, Jake. Seeing Ashley just reminded me of that time. It's nothing. Mom, Dad, Jake. Ashley didn't do anything to me. You don't need to worry. That time. It had been so long. How long had it been since I could remember things from before? That was the first time I'd seen Amy sitting on our couch, barely taller than me. But Mom and Dad were so attentive to her. And so was my brother. My favorite doll, the new dress I just bought, even the birthday present I'd picked out, all ended up in her arms. It seemed like everyone got nervous if she was even a little upset. I don't know when it started, but my things slowly got pushed into a corner while Amy's stuff took over my space. Then came the first fight. Mom and Dad had filled the house, where plants weren't allowed, with flowers. They even built a special greenhouse for her. Right after that, I had an allergic reaction and was hospitalized. I couldn't be around that stuff. They knew that. But no matter how much I protested, Mom just slapped me. Why are you being so difficult? Everyone else can handle it. Why can't you? After that, I stopped making a fuss. But Amy still didn't leave me alone. When I was learning to drive, she threw herself in front of the car, crying and saying things I didn't understand. Jake and Ryan got really angry. Then I heard Amy screaming that she wanted to kill herself. To make her feel better, I paid the price with my leg. I practically crawled home, where they forced me to kneel and apologize to Amy. I kept explaining, trying to prove myself. I thought I'd be safe when Mom and Dad got back, but they didn't say a word. They just dumped me in a war-torn slum overseas for 6 years. And now this. Jake looked stunned, but he didn't apologize. Amy's just too nice. She's not hurt now, but that doesn't mean you won't go after her. You're just too kind-hearted. Amy wiped her eyes and apologized to me. Ashley, please don't mind him. He's just too protective of me. I don't know what it is, but he just gets worked up whenever he sees you. It's my fault for being so scared. Mom and Dad stepped forward to comfort her, looking at me with suspicion. How about this? Ashley can stay in the storage room downstairs, the 2nd floor. It's best if you don't go up there for now. I nodded carefully. The storage room was better than the mud and filth of the slum. I was exhausted. I didn't want to explain anything. Besides, I didn't care about any of this anymore. Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, can I go to Grandma's tomorrow? The only family I wanted to see. I wondered if she even remembered having a granddaughter after all this time. Everyone's face clouded over. I shrank back, terrified. That's why you came back? You know Grandma doesn't like Amy, and you're still going to see her? You haven't changed at all. Ashley, you disgust me. You've already pushed Amy to the breaking point. Are you still going to bully her? Jake was screaming at me. I curled up in a ball, putting my hands over my head, and kept apologizing. I'm sorry, I won't go. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see Grandma. I'm sorry. Mom looked at me in disbelief, reaching out to touch my shoulder. I recoiled in horror. I won't touch you. I won't, Ashley. Mom won't touch you. She covered her mouth, not understanding why I'd become like this. The pain in her eyes seemed even more real than before. Part 2. I settled into the storage room. It was the most stable night I'd had in years, but I still couldn't sleep. Wrapped in the blankets, I huddled in the corner, watching the fireworks explode in the sky through the rusty window frame. Every time they burst, I tensed up. The war-torn slums never saw peace. The fireworks, meant to celebrate reunions, felt like another bombing raid. Then came the death sentence. The mercenaries stripped me naked and tied me to a post in the empty countryside. They lit explosive after explosive around me, enjoying my physiological response to the fear. I begged them to let me go or just kill me, but they just laughed harder, looking monstrous. The client said, as long as you don't die, the boys can do whatever they want. The leader showed me the message. The sender was listed as Smith. It was a number I knew well. When I was little, Mom had made me memorize her, Dad's, and Jake's personal cell numbers, so I could call if I was in danger. Now, that number had become a death sentence. I was frozen with cold. At that moment, I lost hope. I gave up. Finally, as dawn broke, the butler brought me a bowl of steaming hot dumplings. Little Ashley, eat up. Grandpa Young made them himself. I thanked him carefully, picked up the bowl and swallowed them down, keeping my eyes fixed on the window frame. I didn't notice when Grandpa Young left. When I went outside, Amy was the only one home. It looked like today was a day for a family gathering. She insisted on taking me with her. Jake saw me from a distance and his smile vanished. What are you doing here? Today's a family event. There are so many relatives and friends. Go back. Don't cause trouble. Amy smiled sweetly. Jake, I brought Ashley. I forgave her a long time ago. I really hope she'll like me. Her words made Jake look heartbroken. He stroked her hair, then turned to me, his face cold. Since Amy's pleading for you, you can stay here today. You owe your sister, Amy, for this return, and you need to learn to be thankful and don't always focus on hurting her. Do you understand? I nodded. Thank you, Miss Amy. Thank you, Mr. Jake. I won't. He frowned like he wanted to say something. Then a group of young men surrounded him, and he didn't say anything. He just told someone to find me a quiet place to stay. Jake, I know that girl. Don't let her leave. She's from the country family, Not good for her, unsuitable to meet people. I didn't hear a word. I kept walking towards a place where there were fewer people. I'd agreed to everything he'd said, but he still wasn't happy. It was strange. The party was coming to an end. Jake came out of the hall, covering his mouth, and leaned against the wall, throwing up. I stood up. Just as I was about to walk away, he slumped down next to me, holding out his hand. Ashley, are you going to tell your brother to drink less? He shook his head and smiled bitterly. I can't. These people are important contacts. I have to think about the Smith family. I moved away confused. I didn't know what he wanted. Jake looked up at me, puzzled. Where's the napkin? And the hangover pills? What? I was confused. Then I remembered that Jake had started shouldering the Smith family's responsibilities when he was young. He'd been forced to learn how to socialize, to deal with all sorts of people in the business world. He inevitably got drunk often. Maybe it was a brother-sister thing. I understood. I felt bad for him. Whenever there was a party, I'd insist on going with him. Then I'd wait for him to come out, give him the hangover pills I always carried with me, but he never appreciated it. What are you being so dramatic about? This is what I have to do as the heir to the Smith family. Do you even understand? Why don't you learn from Amy? She's always so encouraging. You just give me these pills every day, like you're trying to inherit the family fortune yourself. There's no truth in wine, I always told myself. After all, he was my brother. No matter what he said, I still couldn't help but worry. Even if I didn't go, I'd find someone to send the pills for me. But even the deepest emotions have their limits. Jake's face was dark. Your own brother's doing all this for the family, and you're not even worried? I lowered my head, a little scared, but I still shook my head. This is what you have to do as the heir to the Smith family. Why should I worry? You guys can keep drinking. I won't bother you. As soon as I turned to leave, Jake grabbed my arm. You. His tone changed suddenly. How did you get so many scars on your arm? His cold eyes softened a little. I flushed, pulling away, shaking. What's wrong with you? I gave you the money. Slums, is only this result what you did to yourself? He got angrier as he talked, but I couldn't understand any of it. Wasn't it all their fault? After arguing for a while, he realized he wasn't getting anywhere. He sighed and told me to take a cab home. Fine, go back so you can have some rest. Aren't you just resenting us for sending you to slums for 6 years? Now that you're back, stop making trouble. You're making mom and dad worry. You know? I nodded. Maybe I shouldn't have come back. Maybe I should have died on the road, but I still wanted to see Grandma one more time. I hoped I could wait that long. Ryan came to the Smith house again a week later. Other than the fact that they weren't married, he and Amy were no different from a regular couple. They were incredibly close. If this had happened before, I would have made a scene. Amy had taken my gifts, my house, even my family's love, and now she was trying to take the person I'd loved for so long. Even the most generous person has their limits. But now that it was actually happening, I suddenly felt calm like never before. I just didn't know why Ryan kept glancing at me, then looking away as soon as I made eye contact, like he'd seen something disgusting. After they went upstairs, I got a message from Amy. Ashley, I know where Grandma is. Come upstairs. I'll tell you quietly so Mom and Dad don't find out. I was silent for a moment. I knew she couldn't be that kind, but I still chose to go upstairs,